Do you constantly find yourself saying, I'm only young once, or I'll figure out how to make more money later, or any other combination of short term, in the moment justifications for bad spending behavior? Well, the last thing I'd want to do is kill your vibe. The money coach in me needs you to start thinking long term with money. Instead of letting YOLO, you only live once, be your driving mantra behind spending, learn to accommodate your future self as well. It won't happen overnight, but you can train your brain to think long term with money. In this episode, I'm sharing 5 ways you can start that training process today. Hey there, I'm Rhea Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Now, everyone has a different money personality. Some people hoard their money and avoid spending it at all costs. On the other end of the spectrum, some people can't let much time pass before spending what money they do have. While neither scenario is great, the goal should be to maintain control of your money. A part of that includes preparing for your future and thinking long-term with your financial decisions. So let's get into how to start thinking long-term with money. The first thing you can do is visualize your future. If you want to start thinking long-term with your money, you actually have to imagine yourself in the future. You have to see a future for yourself, a future you actually want. This can be very hard for some people, but you need to give it an honest shot. What do you want your life to look like 5, 10, or 20 years from now? What do you want your life to look like in retirement? Do you want kids, properties, a business? When you imagine what you want your life to look like in the future, ask yourself if your current money behaviors are helping or hurting your chances of getting there. Realizing that your present actions could be negatively impacting your future desires is a huge wake-up call. This took a while for me to realize when I was in college, and ultimately, most of my time in Los Angeles, at least 5 years, I was not thinking about the future. I was not being financially responsible. I was constantly spending my money on things that really didn't matter to me. And once I did have my wake-up call in the form of an almost eviction, I was forced to think about what I want my life to look like. What do I truly value? What do I want? And I had that hard conversation with myself of, is the current actions I'm taking with my money, are they helping or hurting this future desire of mine? And they were hurting it big time. So I understand that recognizing your current behaviors and actions and them being negatively impactful for your future is a hard pill to swallow, but we got to swallow it. We got to get over it, and we got to do things differently. Now, visualization is such a powerful tool. And while it may not completely change your behavior, especially, instantly or in the moment, things like impulses or mental health triggers can obviously come up and deter your actions. Visualization will help you start considering the choices you make. If you can visualize a future for yourself that you truly want, it can help you make better spending decisions in the present. And when you start making better choices with your money, you give your future self a chance to have everything it desires. Now, I want to add that if mental health is impacting your finances, you are not alone, and there are solutions. I want you to listen to City Girl Savings podcast episode number 38, money and mental health. I had one of my past clients, Lisa, come on the show and talk about her mental health issues and how it has impacted her finances. Very real, raw, vulnerable conversation. I will link to that episode in the show notes. But ultimately, the first way to train your brain to think long term with money is to visualize your future and understand what you ultimately want out of life. The next way to train your brain to think long term with money is to compare your present to this future that you desire. So now that you know what you want your future to look like in the next 5, 10, or 20 years, I want you to compare your current situation to your future situation, or what you want your future situation to look like. Does it look like you're renting an apartment now, but you'll be owning a home in the future? Does it look like you're making $60,000 a year now, but you'll be making $120,000 in the future? I'm not saying you have to make all of the changes right now to your current situation. I'm simply encouraging you to think about what will need to change financially to get you where you want to be in the future. And similarly to visualizing your future, this could be a tough concept to think about initially, especially if your current situation is so far away from what you want your future situation to look like. But I want you to face it. I want you to get over the tough stuff. It's not easy, and I don't intend to make it sound like it's easy, but it is very important. It is game changing. When you can visualize your future, but also compare it to where you are in the present, you'll identify what needs to change to get you from here to there ultimately. And once you know those things, you can actually start implementing the changes. Slowly but surely, yes, but you can start taking action. Again, the goal is not to change instantly, to change drastically, to make things happen quicker than they need to. The goal is to recognize where you currently are and how different that is from where you actually want to be in the future, and start bridging that gap slowly but surely right now in the present. Are you loving this episode so far? Well, the money and life level up conversations never end in the City Girl Savings community. Visit citygirlsavings.com for instant access to resources that help you budget, level up your money mindset, and so much more. And make sure you stay up to date with CGS by following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at City Girl Savings. The next way to start thinking long-term with your money is to start practicing delayed gratification. And I think practicing delayed gratification is more difficult than it sounds. And just so you're aware, delayed gratification is your ability to say no to your present wants so that you can say yes to your future desires. So basically, not spending your time or money on things that won't help your future self. And since you know what your future self looks like or where you want your future self to be, practicing delayed gratification does become easier because you have some motivation. You have a reason to say no to your present wants because your future desires are much more important. It's much easier to say no to buying a new pair of shoes you really don't need when you know your future self will have $100,000 in investments. Now, delayed gratification does not mean avoiding spending your money on the things you love. I want to make that clear. It means avoiding spending money on the things that are not in budget or things that truly don't help you reach your future goals. And when you're first starting out with practicing delayed gratification or just being intentional with your spending, I want you to give yourself some grace. This is not an easy thing to master. I feel like we live in a society where instant gratification is really where we're at. We can order something with the click of a button. We can have it delivered by the end of the day. We can have our food, our dinner at our door. You know, our society really pushes instant gratification. So it is not easy to practice delayed gratification and slowing down you getting what you want, but it's a very essential skill to mastering the money you make. So Again, give yourself grace. Understand that practicing delayed gratification does not always come easy, but being conscious of your spending decisions is incredibly important. Whether you end up spending the money or not, I want you to just be mindful of what you're doing. And, delayed gratification, in my opinion, plays such a big role in financial success that I even dedicated a full podcast episode to the topic of delayed gratification. You can check out episode number 37 for a deeper dive into delayed gratification, the benefits of it, and how to start practicing it yourself. I'll make sure to link to that episode in the show notes. The next way to start thinking long-term with money is to find alternatives to impulses or spending triggers. Being proactive is so much better than being reactive. And if you know that certain people, certain places, or certain things trigger you to spend money, especially when you shouldn't, I want you to proactively avoid those people, places, or things, or find alternatives to them. And having your backup plan handy before the impulse strikes can help you avoid overspending. So this is where being proactive is better than being reactive. Do not wait until you are in the position where your spending trigger is activated or your impulse is spiked. Don't wait until you're in that position. Instead, have a plan ahead of time. And since thinking long-term with money means you're not indulging in present spending distractions, you will need to avoid those distractions. I had talked about early in the podcast how I curb my desire to spend. And one of the ways I did that was avoiding certain stores. When I first moved back to Austin after college, and I was working to improve my financial situation, and I was doing the right things with my money, thankfully, I had a pastime with my mom where we would go to Marshall's, TJ Maxx, Ross, the discount stores that actually have really good finds. And although, the cost of things are relatively affordable, I always found something. There was always something for me to spend my money on. And it took me having to avoid those places to avoid the spending. So again, you got to be real with yourself. You got to recognize what is encouraging you to overspend. And then you got to do something different. Most times we know what triggers our impulses or our reckless spending behavior. It could be stress, excitement, anxiety, or any other emotion. So seek out ways to handle those emotions that do not require you to spend money. You'll keep more money in your bank account and you'll avoid the guilt that comes with spending money you shouldn't. For example, if every time you get excited about a work win, you buy yourself a new pair of shoes, recognize that pattern and find ways to channel your excitement towards other things. Maybe it's adding money to a wants fund. Maybe it's giving yourself permission to binge watch your favorite show, or maybe it's picking up an extra iced coffee for the week. The point is to shift the bad spending behavior to something positive, or at least something less financially impactful. The final way to start thinking long-term with money is to remember your why. So why is it important that your present actions help your future self? Why do you want to live the kind of life you visualize for your future? Get those answers. Why? Why is it important that your present actions help your future self? Why do you want to live the kind of life that you visualize for yourself in the future? Get that answer. Know that answer, because keeping your why in mind will help you avoid bad spending decisions. And it may not be 100% foolproof strategy. I mean, we are human after all, but it can help keep your spending within limits. To keep your why front and center, you can write your goals down. You can put reminders on your phone. You can share your future vision with those closest to you, or you can journal regularly. These are just some ideas of actions that can help you keep your why top of mind on a day-to-day basis. And I'll say for me, I actually have a document on my computer that has my 1, 3, and 5 year vision, and I regularly look at it. Like, where do I see myself in 1 year? Where do I see myself in 3 years, 5 years? I'm constantly looking at that document so I understand that my present actions can help or hurt me from getting to the future Rhea that I want to be. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is 100% foolproof because certain impulses or desires in the moment can overtake us. It is something that you're going to have to practice to get better at. But I do want you to get in the habit of always going back to your why. And even if it's just a reminder for yourself and not as a defense mechanism, right? Don't always go back to your why when you're in the middle of making a bad spending decision. Constantly remember your why, even when you're not tempted to spend. Before you know it, you'll never have a problem remembering why hard work and discipline in the present is worth it for you. So, like any habit or skill, thinking long-term with money can be learned and practiced by everyone. The sooner you start practicing, the sooner the habit will stick. And there are so many benefits to thinking long-term with your money. I think the most important one being that your future self is taken care of. And even if it may seem like decades away, I want you to know that the actions you do now with your money will have a tremendous impact on where you stand in the future. Thinking long-term with your money is an absolute must, and it's something that we can all work on. Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.